a lot of places that have unstable currencies, high inflation, bad central bank policy, and giving everyone the ability to kind of freely choose whatever currency. All of the neobanks, to an extent, are kind of beautiful interfaces around like the same banking rails, right? I think like it's fantastic that they exist, but it's still very much kind of putting lipstick on a pig.
So today I'm in London to meet Paul, who's the CEO and co-founder of Plasma. Plasma is a stablecoin chain and has the backing of the Tether founder, and they've got one impressive 1 billion in TVL that they raised. I'm gonna be here in London to film the Money and Identity series, and Paul is the perfect counterpart to talk to. Paul, welcome to the Money and Identity series. Thanks for taking the time. I would like to understand, when was the moment that you realized that you wanted to found Plasma?
I think for me that was a very gradual thing. I don't think there was one aha insight moment. I'm really in this. I think for me it was very much, I ended up meeting Paulo, who runs Tether by chance. And I was just kind of realizing the magnitude of the opportunity, where stablecoins to an extent are a very recent thing to kind of really work at scale. Pre-2020, stablecoins weren't really a meaningful factor. And that's obviously changed in a very meaningful way and became very kind of visceral to us that stablecoins are like the one interesting use case for crypto that truly works at scale, and that you still have this weird duopoly between Ethereum and Tron, where those are really the large heavyweights that fully dominate all things stablecoin. And it was kind of thinking through that and realizing that I have very high conviction that won't be the case in 3, 5, 10 years, basically. And I think that creates this kind of opportunity space to build in, and so it's a kind of a non-answer really, but that was kind of the thought process going into it.
When you were at Alloy and Deribit, what what did you see there that made you want to found Plasma?
For me, it was actually I used to play poker way back in the day, and as a German citizen and resident, Germany passed legislation that you can only deposit 1,000 euros to poker sites per month, regardless of like whether you do it for a living, if you like, it doesn't matter how much money you have, doesn't matter how much income you have, that is the upper limit, where like the state protects you from yourself basically, and that pissed me off like a lot, right? Because you're like, I do this, like I know what I'm doing, like why does someone like nanny me on, oh no, you can't like wire 1,100 euros to PokerStars if you want to. And I think it was kind of the like freedom, self-custody aspect of it that definitely, probably like for me when I originally got into crypto, really wasn't the like big visionary. I think there's people who are like way sharper on all of that, who like saw this like a decade ago and were like, oh, this is like freedom technology. I wouldn't say that's true for me, but I think that's definitely kind of a view I've come to over time, and I think that is like this. No one wants to be told what to do, basically, and I hate being told what to do, and I think stablecoins are like a good way of like realizing that in a way.
What was it that brought you into crypto in the first place?
It was very much poker, and it was very much kind of it was basically friends of mine who were way earlier than me to crypto, who kind of dragged me in.
I want to get to this a little bit later again, but one interesting twist is you study philosophy next to technology, and I would love to talk a bit more about what you're still using today.
I mean, fun fact, I actually finished neither. I still tell my parents that at some point I will, but I think that like train has probably left the station at this point. But I really liked philosophy. Like it forces you into this like very like methodical view of like looking at problems. Where you're like, those are my assumptions. Like they may be true, they may not be true, but like let's assume they're true and like let's kind of reason through this. I think that's definitely been massively helpful. I think if I would kind of do it all again, I would probably only study philosophy. I really liked it, and I think it definitely kind of informs how I think about things in like small ways.
So this whole stablecoin economy, some call it OpenFi, open finance. What is that, and how would you describe it?
It's a really interesting question. It's definitely extremely nascent. I think you do have people generally view stablecoins as this like basically like monolithic product stack, and I think that's mostly not accurate. I think you do actually have a lot of like the overarching like stablecoin economy. I think is a way of kind of basically putting a lot of things that I think are somewhat distinct into one category. And I think on the like Western payment side of things, it's very early. If you look at the like Bridge and BVNK type kind of stablecoin payment companies, I think those are still very much at the beginning. I think really it's very crypto native at the moment. Crypto native exchanges matter a lot, and then obviously do an incredible amount of just turnover and volume on stablecoins. And really, I think you kind of have to look at two distinct kind of categories of stablecoin products. On one hand, you have kind of the Western, so US and European, kind of basically domestic stablecoins that I would view as tokenized cash. USDC being the kind of largest example of that. And then you have the kind of global, like rest of world stablecoin use case, which USDT dominates. And I'm very incentivized to believe this, but I think the way larger opportunity is in rest of world and not in kind of domestic. Sending money from New York to Los Angeles is a solved issue, basically. Sure, it could be a bit more efficient, could be a bit better, and like I think that there is a lot of kind of room for improvement there. But I think really the massive opportunity is really global access to liquid, reliable, like digital US dollar, basically. I think that is really where like the bulk of the like very tangible stablecoin value is. And that is somewhat different than like, I don't know, like some hedge funds settling a trade in USDC, which is like directionally interesting, but also like it's not that big of a delta to like how things work right now.
Is it a financial or a technology innovation?
Both. It's actually interesting because I think fintech in general has been way less innovative than kind of it appears on the surface. All of the neobanks, to an extent, are kind of beautiful interfaces around like the same banking rails, right? I think like it's fantastic that they exist, but it's still very much kind of putting lipstick on a pig. And so I think it's truly a combination of like it's money 2.0 basically, the way we view it, where like you truly have like global equal access to like stable currency basically, and I think that is way underrated in its kind of global importance and global impact.
The whole stablecoin OpenFi movement, is it a B2B play or is it more of a back-end institutional revolution?
I think it's probably both. I think in the end, a lot of those, I mean, kind of, if you look at it as like someone who's building the space, you're to an extent always, as a chain, you're always a B2B2C product, really, where no one really interacts with a blockchain like themselves, really. Like you always go through some front end or some tooling, whether that is MetaMask or Coinbase or Binance or Rabi Wallet. Like you always have some sort of interface to interact with all things on chain, and I think that does make it like more of a B2B rollout probably. But in the end, consumers matter, and like consumers need to like want to use whatever you're building, and so again, complete non-answer, but I think it's probably both.
I would like to understand better when we're talking about open finance and stable coins, what is the real value driver? And like if we're looking at the iPhone when it came out, right? Like most people saw it as a way, for example, to communicate with their grandkids. And that was the one feature that made people that were a little bit older adopt it. So what is that one feature, or maybe what are the features that make stablecoins so attractive?
I think it's an interesting question, what kind of the core value and core use cases. The core value that stablecoins have is to provide equal and fair global access to currency. I think that is really the kind of very core value proposition. And that sounds like a small thing, but it very much isn't, where you do have a lot of places that have unstable currencies, high inflation, bad central bank policy, and giving everyone the ability to kind of freely choose whatever currency they hold, and whether that is USD or local currency, and like having flexibility and going back and forth between those, I think is massively valuable, and I think makes for a better world. Basically, sounds massively grandiose and too large, but I truly believe that stablecoins are kind of a humanitarian force for good. Basically, I think that is really the core value of stablecoins, is basically being, I mean, in TradFi you would call it euro dollar, which is basically USD deposits that aren't in the US. I think that is really what the core value of stablecoins is right now, is giving everyone the ability to easily and cheaply access whatever currency they want globally. And I think it's very like, it's a deeply anti-authoritarian thing in the end, where if you live in a place that has extremely high inflation, and your savings, your income just gets inflated away, and you have no ability to hold a different currency that you would prefer holding, I think it has like true like humanitarian value to have everyone be in a position to kind of access this, where you do have billions of people on Earth that are functionally unbanked, and so I think it's really this kind of global money to a movement, really, where everyone has easy and equal access to financial infrastructure, really.
So the funny thing is, in social media we had a similar development, right? Where we had suddenly a lot of competition, and you had Google buying YouTube, you had Facebook buying Instagram, and it reminds me a little bit of like Stripe grabbing Privy and Bridge. What would you say? What are the similarities, and how is Plasma different from, let's say, Stripe or other stable coins right now?
I think that's a very good question, and I think in the end, I think we are going after very different things than Stripe or Circle. I think you do have this differentiation between kind of the domestic, very US focused, like basically the kind of Circle aligned side of things, and then you have the kind of global and more kind of rest of world products, and we're very focused on the latter, and I think that's really where we have an edge, where you do need to be aligned with a lot of local players in a lot of non-US places, and then the crypto native side of things matters a lot, and in the end it is you're building network effects, really, because as a chain that is specifically kind of built for payments, stablecoins, if you can't be used everywhere, you don't really have a lot of value, is kind of my general view on it, where you do need to be omnipresent, you need to be integrated with every exchange, ideally, you need to work with all of the large on-off ramp providers, you need to work with the payment companies. It's a like massive kind of multi-variable system, basically. And I think we have a massive edge, and on one hand having a head start on that, and also being focused in places that I think a Stripe or a Circle is less focused on.
What's your answer to Stripe buying Bridge and Privy?
I think it makes a ton of sense for them strategically. I mean, I have extremely deep respect for the Collinsons, and I think that they're the best entrepreneurs probably that we've seen in like many decades, and so I'm a massive fan basically. I think the Bridge and Privy acquisitions make a ton of sense strategically. It's interesting because you did mention Instagram as an example, right, which kind of looked like a weird acquisition at the time because it was really expensive and it wasn't really making a lot of money, and I mean Zuckerberg definitely got a lot of flack for buying Instagram at the time, and I think it turns out to like be one of the more like successful acquisitions in business history probably. I mean, Instagram now is worth probably hundreds of billions standalone, and I think there's a chance the kind of Bridge and Stripe thing plays out in a similar way. I think Stripe realizes that stablecoins are here to stay, and that like having like dominating that is not optional, but kind of key to surviving and to growing. And so yeah, I think Stripe buying Bridge and Privy is astute.
Would it be fair to say that you guys are an open source alternative to what Stripe's building?
To an extent, yes. I mean, this is going to sound very grandiose again, but like imagine like the Android open source with the Apple experience and user experience and design and just kind of touch and feel. That's very much what we're looking to achieve.
How are you going to do that?
I don't think there's one good short answer to that. I think like that involves kind of a million different things that we need to get right. And a trillion, exactly. Trillions indeed, yeah. Trillions of things.
If you really need to force a bet, so come up with a prototype, take a look at the crystal ball for the next 3 to 5 years, what would you say, how is that nascent industry developing in that time frame?
It's really tough to predict what's going to happen in the stablecoin space in the next couple of years. I mean, especially given that stablecoins at like meaningful scale have basically been around for 5 years max, maybe 6, but like that's the order of magnitude. And so I think you will see an absolute land grab to kind of own stablecoin infrastructure globally, and to kind of basically integrate and kind of truly kind of build vertical stablecoin payment experiences. And I think you still have kind of further bifurcation between the kind of domestic and rest of world stablecoin products, where I think the rest of world is kind of going to be the winner, kind of the open source, like freedom, global USD value proposition. I think is the way stronger one than the, oh, I can now use USDC to like send money from my Coinbase account to someone in New York. I think that is like a way less interesting value proposition. I think those two things will kind of coexist and both grow, but I think it's going to be very competitive, and it's going to be a brutal arms race basically.
Plasma is about transactions, stablecoins, but you've been talking about people a lot in developing countries. Is there a place for people? Is there a unit of humans on Plasma?
In some sense, yes. I mean, I think in the end, you want real people to use your products and not bots or like farming operations or like whatever that may be. And so there's definitely a unit that like represents a person on Plasma.
What type of tools are you going to build or enable on Plasma that allows people to interact with Plasma directly?
We will build a lot of tooling around the kind of actual kind of experience of using Plasma as a product. I think in the end, I think as a chain you need to be like the chain needs to be the base layer. I think you have to like build a lot of the aspects around the chain, either with partners or yourself. And so there's going to be direct ways to kind of interact with Plasma with like a very like a purpose-built user experience around that basically.
When you think of the clients, the users, the people that matter for Plasma, can you give me an idea of who that is, of use cases that you want to enable?
I think there's multiple different answers to this. Because I mean, you're really kind of building a new financial system, and every good financial system, or like every financial system, has like extremely broad participation from like the consumer-facing side of things to like the middleware to the kind of larger entities to the like crypto-native exchanges in our context to like banks and asset managers. And I think you need kind of that entire stack to be in place for it to like truly have any resemblance of a system, really. But like none of this makes sense if only kind of one category of user is represented.
Paul, you said that fintech is kind of like putting lipstick on a pig because they're still working with the old banking rails. What are we doing better?
I think the stablecoin economy is going to be one that is more open and more equal in a sense, that is kind of less gated and less local. I think it's going to be fully like global by design, which I think is a massive advantage. And I think that's a force for good.
If you're now comparing the state of the industry compared to TradFi or fintech, where do we fall short? Like, what is the biggest hurdle of us realizing that vision?
I think stablecoins still fall short in many different ways. I mean, I think it's all of this is a massive network effects exercise, and I think that just takes time and takes scale, and it's very nascent, it's very early, and so I think that scale has not been achieved yet, but like it needs truly global reach and like basically omnipresence to really work. And I think we're on a very good path to getting there, but it's still work in progress.
How do you think about identity and inclusion in Plasma?
That's a good question. I think for us, given that we kind of need the entire kind of slice, like from like, that doesn't matter who it is, to like be in a position to interact with Plasma, and we obviously have a keen interest in having real people use Plasma as opposed to bots, farming operations, whatever kind of else there may be, and so we think about identity in that context, but like we do want real people to use Plasma, no matter where they're from, who they are, like that fully doesn't matter, but like it needs to be like non-bot farm activity on Plasma, and I think identity obviously plays a role in that.
You studied philosophy, so please allow me to kind of touch base on that. What philosophy has shaped you and has found its impact on the way how you're building Plasma? Yeah,
sure. I mean, I'm going to have a very uninteresting answer to this. I mean, I'm generally like a pretty big free markets guy, and so the Adam Smith type philosophy is definitely kind of an appealing one for me, where I think markets are a force for good on average, within reason and definitely with kind of caveats, but I think that is generally closer to true than to untrue, and I think that's a general philosophy I would say I subscribe to, and I think there's a lot of kind of thinkers who kind of are in that kind of category of philosophy.
Is there a general notion of how you see the world that is reflected in Plasma?
I think equal and fair access to financial tooling is a force for good. And I think distributing that extremely widely is the right thing to do, basically. I think that has like real, tangible value.
This is one of my favorite questions. If you were to go back to the early 90s and you could have an impact of how the internet is being built, what would you change?
It's a very good question. I think there's like many. I think there's many different answers to that makes sense. I think that there's a lot of a lot of things that we care about at Plasma aren't even like truly internet, but on the kind of fintech and financial regulation side of things. I think there's like a long and rich history of I think just regulatory capture on a lot of things, where like progress is just slowed down by incumbents not being interested in having progress because it's the classic like innovator's dilemma to an extent, right? But like you become large and you become an incumbent, and then you're kind of becoming anti-progress basically. And I think that's to an extent even true in the internet now. But like a lot of the kind of early internet companies have become so large that they kind of face a very similar struggle. I think if I could change anything about how the internet kind of came about, I think the money aspect of internet is a very recent phenomenon. I think the true product innovation of saying, look, anyone with an internet connection should basically also have access to financial tooling. That's a very, very recent concept. And I think had that been a thought earlier on and an effort, I think we would be in a better place now. And so, somewhat abstract answer, but I think the internet being like the core kind of financial rails infrastructure should have happened earlier, basically.
How does success look like for Plasma? Like if you're looking at different metrics like number of users, TVL, what would you say in 3 to 5 years? Where do you stand?
It's a good question. I think that there isn't really one metric we optimize for, because I think it is. This is a saying like the second you optimize for one metric, it kind of becomes gameable and kind of loses its value. And I think that is generally true. Where for us, really, I mean, the Plasma tagline is like improving how money moves, and I think that is what we're very focused on from a product perspective. And of course, our ambition is to be like the place for stablecoins, and I think we're on a very good path to getting there. But it's tough to like say our goal is to like achieve 10 million users in the next 6 months, because I think all of those metrics, especially in crypto, are like semi-real sometimes, and so we're very focused on basically just having a truly differentiated product and kind of a rollout that matches that, more than kind of optimizing for any one specific metric.
If we look at it from a product perspective and we go a little bit more fuzzy, just to explain, in 3 years you have Plasma, the product, the network, the infrastructure being in a certain place. What would success mean? Can you paint us a bit of a picture to understand where Plasma is going?
Sure. I think we will have to very aggressively verticalize as soon as we can, where my general view is I think block space is a highly commodified product. I don't think anyone wins on having a fast and cheap chain. I think you win on having truly differentiated user experiences, and having distribution to kind of actually get usage of that. I think that is really, if you boil it down, what matters. So I think building a chain in the end is something that a lot of teams have done, a lot of teams will be doing in the future, and I think that there's definitely winners and losers in this, obviously. But it's not the, like, building a fast and cheap blockchain is basically a solved issue. And so I think really for us it's about how quickly can we kind of build the kind of payment stack around and into that kind of core chain product. And I think that is how we look at product success very much, is like how integrated of an experience can we build on the payment side.
So basically, you just click on a button, deploy on Plasma, and you have a bank ready at
Ideally,
your fingertips.
yes. I mean, Nathan, our payments and growth guy, jokes about bank in a box. It's a bit of a running joke internally for us, where everything is a bank in a box. But I do think that is like the eventual end state, where you do fully have like vertically integrated payment experiences that kind of settle on chain. I think that's the goal everyone strives for to an extent.
What excites you personally about the future of money and identity that's beyond Plasma?
I think it's a very unique time in history to kind of have the opportunity to work on like the truly kind of the next evolution of money. That's how I see it, and I'm hoping Plasma is kind of going to be a small part of facilitating that. But really, I think the kind of digital money, digital currency era is upon us, and that is deeply exciting. I think that's a very long-term progression. I don't think that happens next year. I don't think it happens in 2 years fully. It's going to be a very kind of, it's not a binary basically, but like getting to work on this and then getting to kind of work on something that I think is kind of truly changing how money is used and perceived and works, I think is deeply exciting. And so it's tough for me to mention anything outside of Plasma, because I think Plasma like very deeply ties into that, obviously.
Paul, I've got a last curveball question. Goldman Sachs just came up and had a research on the stable token economy. Do you know how big it's going to be?
Trillions. I'm sure it's going to be trillions. I mean, look, it's funny because I think we started this meme like a year ago now or something, and we obviously very liberally use trillions. And I think when we started it, there was sub 100 billion in stablecoin supply outstanding. We're now up to 260 billion, 265, kind of that order of magnitude. And so it's only a 4x to go from here until we're actually in the trillions. And I have high confidence that this happens very soon.
Cool. Thank you for the interview.
I appreciate it. Thank you.